My grandmother is very malicious. When my mother's cooking didn't suit her taste, she overturned the table. I gave her a scarf I had knitted myself, and she called it ugly and threw it in the trash. I was so furious that I was about to explode and curse at the old hag. Mom pulled me back, shaking her head, and I angrily asked her why. She patted my head and whispered into the air, "Can my daughter also bind it?" An hour later, Grandma once again overturned the new dish Mom had made, just as I couldn't take it anymore. I heard her inner thoughts. "These are all my favorite dishes on the table. Woo-woo, you damn system, you're really not human." Ever since I can remember, my grandmother has treated my mother and me very poorly. Our family's conditions are actually not bad, and we even have a nanny to cook and clean. However, after my grandmother moved in under the pretext of taking care of my mother during her postpartum period, she often made my mother do chores. As I grew a bit older, she often cursed and called me a worthless burden. Every time I argued with her to protect my mother, she would mock me. "A worthless burden is just a worthless burden. Get it straight. Your last name is Chi, not Shen, you little ingrate," always siding with outsiders. If I argue any further, she'll just keep cursing at Mom. "Shenji Shin, are you teaching her to disrespect her elders and go against me?" Mom would always apologize meekly and then teach me to respect Grandma, but with such a venomous woman, wouldn't showing respect only fuel her arrogance? I don't understand, and I'm greatly perplexed, but I feel heartbroken for the hardships my mother endured for me, so I still try to respect my grandmother as she advised. I even knitted a red scarf for her with my own hands before her birthday. Today is my grandmother's birthday, and I respectfully presented the scarf to her. "Grandma, I wish you good health and happiness every day." Who would have thought that upon seeing the scarf, she would be taken aback for a moment before flying into a rage. "The stitches are all crooked and uneven. Did you learn nothing in your handicraft class? How dare you try to fool an old lady like me with such rubbish? Are you deliberately trying to upset me?" After cursing, she crumpled the scarf into a ball and threw it into the nearby trash can. I spent a whole week knitting this scarf, and even Mom praised how beautiful it was. Yet, in Grandma's words, it became unqualified stitching, deliberately meant to annoy. I was instantly so furious I wanted to stomp my feet and curse the old hag. Mom quickly pulled me into her arms, gently stroking my back. She always does this, stopping me just as I'm about to curse and rebel against Grandma. Seeing my defiant expression, Grandma crossed her legs and spoke sarcastically. "What's given to me is mine, and how I handle it is my business. What, you have a problem with that?" Hearing that provocation, I was almost boiling with anger. Since I was a child, I have always been puzzled, why are other people's grandmothers so gentle and kind, while mine is a venomous woman? But my mother has told me countless times that Grandma is just tough on the outside but soft on the inside. Looking at the incredibly arrogant old woman before me, I do not agree. Seeing me biting my lip in silence, Grandma's legs trembled even more cheerfully as she turned to Mom and said, "You'll cook for my birthday feast today. I want 8 cold dishes, 8 hot dishes, and a soup." She also instructed Wang Ma, who was standing nearby, "Don't help her." Mom had long been forced by her to transform from a young lady who never lifted a finger into a versatile and skilled wife, so this request was indeed no trouble at all. She nodded obediently, stood up, tied on her apron, and headed to the kitchen. I followed my mother into the kitchen, feeling heartbroken as I helped her with the preparations. After more than an hour of hard work, 8 cold dishes were finally served on the table. The dishes, double-flavored health tower, cherry radish, braised sauce multi-seed fish, were exquisitely plated, rivaling the work of a hotel chef. My grandmother leisurely stood up and strolled over to inspect the spread. She squinted, carefully examining each dish, then reached out and overturned the dining table. With a series of clattering sounds, the exquisite dishes all fell to the ground. "Mom, what are you doing, Grandma?" My mother and I looked shocked and confused, asking her what she was doing. She angrily pointed at my mother's nose and scolded her. "After being my daughter-in-law for over a decade, you still don't know what I like to eat. Are you deliberately making things I don't like just to disgust me?" Oh my, what an unfilial daughter-in-law, intentionally upsetting her mother-in-law on her birthday. As she spoke, she began to shout loudly, like a shrew cursing in the street. I felt a rush of blood surge to the top of my head, boiling with rage. Ignoring my mother's hints, I broke free from her grasp and prepared to curse out the old bastard, but my mother quickly grabbed me again, shaking her head with a reproachful look in her eyes. Furious, I asked her why. She stroked my head and whispered to the air, "System, can you let my daughter bind as well?" I was puzzled. "Mom, who are you talking to?" She smiled and shook her head, then turned to Grandma gently and said, "Mom, I'll go remake it right away." Grandma looked displeased, waving her hand impatiently as she said, go on, Songbai will be home in 3 hours, hurry up, don't let my son wait on an empty stomach. In Grandma's eyes, her son will always be the most important. Not wanting to look at her disgusting old face any longer, I followed Mom back to the kitchen. Another hour or so of busy work passed, during which Mom accidentally cut her finger. Blood gushed out as I rushed to the living room to grab a band-aid, while Grandma sipped her tea and watched TV with a sarcastic tone. Look at you, still so clumsy at your age, how embarrassing. I couldn't be bothered to respond to her and quickly returned to the kitchen to help Mom bandage the wound. After the dishes were back on the table, Mom and I stood by, waiting for Grandma's inspection. I never expected this old bastard to flip the table again. Don't you know I'm allergic to cilantro? Are you trying to harm me on purpose? Mom said softly. Mom, that's not cilantro, it's celery leaves. I remembered, so I specifically used celery instead of cilantro. A hint of embarrassment flashed across Grandma's face, and then she blushed and shouted, then why did you make it look so much like cilantro? Is it my fault? Mom shook her head with a smile, as if looking at a child throwing a tantrum. No, I'm not blaming you. It's just that there really isn't enough time. How about I ask Aunt Wang to order some dishes from the hotel? We'll get your favorite ones. Aunt Wang, who was cleaning up the mess nearby, felt as if she had been granted a reprieve. Without waiting for Grandma's response, she immediately went to make the call. Grandma, having snapped back to reality, looked furious. You're just lazy, I can tell. Hearing that, I really couldn't hold back anymore. So, in your eyes, the 3 hours of hard work Mom and I put in counts as being lazy. Just as I was about to lose my temper and scold her, a tearful voice suddenly echoed in my mind. These are all my favorite dishes on this table. Woo-woo, you damn system, you're really not human. Holy crap, isn't that Grandma's voice? Before I could react, Grandma's voice echoed in my mind again. My dear granddaughter knitted such a beautiful scarf. It broke my heart to throw it away. I'll pick it up tonight after they've all gone to sleep. As long as I maintain my wicked persona in person, it shouldn't count as breaking the rules, right? I stared in shock at my grandmother, who hadn't spoken a word but was still muttering in her mind. Here I am, a beautiful and intelligent college girl, forced to maintain the persona of a wicked mother-in-law. Oh my God, this is killing me. As she said this, her expression grew even angrier. I looked at my mother, who smiled and nodded at me. At that moment, I finally understood why my mother was endlessly indulgent toward her. Turns out, there's a big sister living inside her body. At this moment, the system in my mind spoke up at just the right time. Actually, not long after you were born, this female college student possessed your grandmother's body. Then what about my real grandmother? She was punished by another system for adding sleeping pills to your milk formula because she found your crying too noisy, and she was sent to another world. Wow, so this college girl was forced to transmigrate into Grandma's body, just to maintain the villainous persona as a tool. The system continued to reply, pretty much. The system she's bound to requires her to play this role until you come of age, and then she can return to her own world. It's also a chance for her to earn a rebirth, since she died from staying up late in another world. No wonder I felt there was an exaggerated kind of malice in Grandma. So that's why, after figuring out the whole story, Mom pulled me aside and whispered, she's not having it easy either, so just go along with it. I remained silent. At that moment, Grandma noticed the band-aid on Mom's hand was still oozing blood. She rolled her eyes and said sarcastically, after all these years, you're still so clumsy. How can there be blood on my birthday? Go take care of it right now. Then, we heard her inner thoughts again. Sigh, maybe I should just stop letting her cook from now on. Losing so much blood must be so painful. If I don't maintain my wicked persona, I'll be electrocuted to death. Woo-woo-woo, I'm sorry. Suddenly, I felt this contrast was somewhat amusing, especially since the old lady was now stiffening her neck and rolling her eyes, while her inner thoughts were adorably muttering, making it even funnier. Unable to hold back, I burst out laughing. Her face instantly darkened, and she glared at me fiercely. What are you laughing at, you wretched girl? I desperately held back my laughter and regained a serious expression. Nothing, I'll go disinfect and bandage Mom's wound again. With that, I dragged Mom back to our room. Once the door was closed, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Mom, have you been living like this for the past decade or so? Watching Grandma act like she has a split personality, she nodded with a smile, and I was utterly impressed. Wow, Mom, you're amazing, you can actually tolerate so much and stay so emotionally stable, that's incredible, seriously, if it were me, I'd be laughing myself to death. At first, I was shocked too, but I got used to it later, because I know she's also pitiful. It's all just talk, in fact. She has never done anything to hurt us, mother and daughter, she's much better than your real grandmother. I nodded, finally understanding why Mom had always been so obedient to Grandma and even coaxed her like a child, a female college student, probably much younger than Mom, so it's reasonable to coax her a bit. After bandaging Mom's wound, we went downstairs. The food we ordered had just arrived, and Dad came back too. He was carrying a big cake, and standing next to him was a young woman. Mom, this is the daughter of Dad's comrade in arms whom he entrusted to us before he passed away. The woman smiled brightly and spoke in a sweet voice. Hello, Auntie, my name is Bai Xiao. Grandma looked her up and down, clicking her tongue and remarking, not bad, she doesn't look like a refugee at all, dressed quite respectably. Tisk, truly a wicked college girl. She sounds just like a seasoned villain the moment she opens her mouth. One sentence made Bai Xiao's face flush with embarrassment, her cheeks reddening as if she were about to cry. Seeing this, Dad quickly spoke up, Mom. She used to run a company and was very successful, it's just that her business failed this year, her house was taken away, and she has nowhere to go. She needs to stay with us for a while, but Grandma refused to let them in, leaning against the doorframe and saying leisurely, oh, but this old lady doesn't like living with strangers. All right then, you pay for it and rent a hotel room for Miss Bai to stay in. Miss Bai can stay as long as she wants, it's just not convenient for her to stay at our house. At the same time, I heard my grandmother's inner thoughts. A young woman in her 20s, at the perfect age for marriage, staying in a married man's house. How shameless. Look at that expression. Oh dear, are you about to cry? I've been a professional tea connoisseur for 10,000 years, and I can't handle you. Sure enough, upon hearing Grandma tell her to leave, Bai Xiao's face instantly turned pale. She bit her lip tightly, lowered her head, and shed tears. Auntie, I didn't want to trouble Brother Qi either, but he said today is your birthday, so I shamelessly begged him to bring me along. Please don't blame him. What a fresh green tea White Lotus. Let's see how I deal with you. Grandma stared at her with a forced smile and said, I didn't intend to blame my son. What do you mean by saying that? Trying to sow discord. With that one sentence, Bai Xiao's face flushed red again, and she stammered, saying it wasn't like that. Seeing Mom standing there in a bad mood, and then looking at my smug expression, Dad couldn't help but frown and speak up. Mom, Xiao is a guest today, and she even bought the cake. Can we please come in first? Grandma's eyes shifted, and I once again heard her inner thoughts. Fine, rather than leaving this unwelcome green tea outside, it's better to keep her under my watch and torment her. System, being cruel to her counts as maintaining my character, right? You better not shock me. It seemed she got a positive response, as Grandma suddenly changed from cold indifference to standing up enthusiastically, saying, oh, you've come all this way, and you even brought something. Look at you. Dad and Bai Xiao were taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. It took them a moment to snap out of it and follow her inside. At the dinner table, Grandma was very warm and welcoming to Bai Xiao. She personally served her food and inquired about her well-being. Miss Bai, what kind of business were you involved in before? Bai Xiao, feeling both flattered and overwhelmed, put down her chopsticks and replied earnestly, it's just a small company, nothing compared to our family enterprise. As she spoke, her eyes wandered around, taking in the luxurious decor of our family villa. A flicker of greed surfaced but was skillfully concealed. However, none of this could escape my sharp-eyed grandmother. You little thing, you definitely have ulterior motives. My mother and I both paused our chopsticks in mid-air. No way. Can you tell already? We looked at each other, a hint of sadness hidden in my mother's eyes. How could she not feel jealous when her husband brings home a young and beautiful woman? I squeezed Mom's hand under the table. Dad raised his glass and delivered a long birthday toast to Grandma, then downed an entire glass of red wine in one gulp. Mom, I've rarely asked you for anything since I was a child. Please agree to let Xiao stay at our house. We have plenty of empty rooms in our home. There's no reason for a guest to stay in a hotel. Bai Xiao looked at her father with emotion, tears welling up in her eyes once again. Grandma smiled and nodded. All right, but there's one condition, Dad said excitedly. Mom, go ahead, I'll agree to anything. Grandma spat out a sentence. You can't live here for free, you have to work. Bai Xiao nodded fiercely beside her. Auntie, I can do it. this way, I can also ease the burden in my heart. After all, my arrival has caused you a lot of trouble." After saying that, she even sat intimately next to my mother, saying polite words about how my sister would be in her care from now on. Grandma stood up and called Dad upstairs. "There's one more condition, come with me inside." Separated by a floor and a door, I couldn't clearly hear Grandma's thoughts. They talked for over half an hour before opening the door and coming down. That evening, Aunt Wang gained another helper for cleaning and washing dishes. Mom wanted to help, but Grandma stopped her. "With your hands in such a state, what are you trying to prove?" By pretending to be diligent, following Grandma's words, Dad finally noticed the wounds on Mom's hands. He asked indifferently, "How did this happen?" Mom explained that she accidentally cut herself while chopping vegetables, and he just replied casually, "Oh, you can leave these things to Aunt Wang, there's no need to push yourself." What a scumbag, he doesn't even care about his own wife. I spit on him. Grandma cursed him in her heart, but her words were icy cold. "Are you saying I'm ordering her around?" Dad was taken aback and quickly denied it. Grandma snorted coldly, "Anyway, now there's someone to boss around for free, so we won't need Shinjishin anymore in the future." After saying that, she stood up and praised Bai Xiao for holding the bowl correctly, not forgetting to take a jab at Mom. "Clumsy and useless, take a good look at how it's done." So, Mom and I stood by and watched Bai Xiao work. Hee. Finally don't have to boss around my precious daughter-in-law and granddaughter anymore. Oh yeah. Seeing that Grandma was very satisfied with Bai Xiao, Dad felt reassured and went into the study. In the days that followed, Grandma found new ways to praise Bai Xiao every day. "He still speaks to me and my mother with venom and without mercy. Look at how efficiently Xiao works, and then look at you two fools. What a disgrace to the family." Alas, every time Grandma scolded me and Mom, Bai Xiao stood by, unable to hide her smug expression. She became even more diligent in her work, even taking on tasks like washing Dad's underwear. Auntie Wang was overjoyed. Now she only needs to help Bai Xiao with some chores and cooking, completely settling into a comfortable life. However, adhering to the principle of earning her keep, she began secretly reporting to her mother, "Madam, Bai Xiao has been delivering late-night snacks to the master every evening recently, and it doesn't look good." Upon hearing this, her mother grew even more heartbroken, yet she still expressed trust in her father and asked her not to report further. It's only been a month since you moved into my house, and you can't help but start trying to please me." Late that night, I deliberately pretended to sleepwalk and knocked on my grandmother's door. She quickly woke up and came out, wrapping herself in her clothes. Seeing me wandering around absent-mindedly, she muttered under her breath, "Damn, you scared me to death." But soon, she saw a faint light downstairs. My task was done, so I turned around and went back to my room to sleep. Not long after lying down, I heard a commotion outside. Excellent. I immediately pretended to have just woken up, got up, and knocked on my mother's door. After we went downstairs, we saw Grandma sitting on the sofa with her arms crossed, absolutely furious. Dad and Bai Xiao stood nearby, heads bowed. "Going to the study in the middle of the night to bring my son a midnight snack, do you think that's appropriate?" Bai Xiao lowered her head and argued, "Auntie, I just feel sorry for Brother Chi working late every night." Grandma snorted coldly, her heart surging with immense waves, still calling him Chi. Brother, tsk, you're like a hen clucking all day long. What kind of nonsense?" She snatched the bowl from Bai Xiao's hands and said coldly, "Miss Bai, this kind of thing should be done by my daughter-in-law. How dare you overstep your bounds?" Upon hearing this, Bai Xiao looked embarrassed, her eyes once again brimming with tears. Dad couldn't bear to see her cry and frowned disapprovingly. "Mom, Xiao meant well, she didn't have any other intentions. Can you stop bullying her?" This sentence completely set off Grandma. It also made Mom, standing nearby, feel heartbroken. Me bullying her? What kind of decent girl doesn't know how to avoid suspicion? Barging into a married man's room in the middle of the night. Chi Songbai, you may have no shame, but I still do. Bai Xiao opened her mouth to defend herself, only to be ruthlessly interrupted by her grandmother. "No wonder you're so good at cooking. Your skill at adding fuel to the fire is quite impressive. You can learn if you lack culture, and you can get plastic surgery if you're ugly, but there's really no cure for a bad heart. Miss Bai, no wonder you managed to squander your family fortune. Your parents must have a great sense of humor to have given birth to such a joke." The more vicious the insults, the more satisfying it felt to listen. Dad couldn't help but shout, "Mom, can you stop blowing things out of proportion? Xiao is already crying." Grandma was completely furious. what's in your head, shit, can't you see your wife is crying too? I only then noticed Mom standing to the side, silently crying. This damn son, why aren't you quickly comforting my dear daughter-in-law? I'm really pissed. Dad frowned at Mom and uttered a sentence. What's wrong with you? My mom hears a rumor and you just follow along and make a fuss. Wipe away your tears, don't cause trouble here. Mom's expression froze, as if she couldn't believe it. When I was little, I always heard my mom talk about her love story with my dad. At that time, my dad had just inherited the company from my grandfather and wasn't very good at managing it, almost causing the company to be delisted. Coincidentally, my mom had just returned from studying abroad and applied for a job at the company. With her excellent skills and sharp mind, she successfully secured a long-term partnership with a foreign enterprise. The company was thus saved. Father was very grateful to Mother and began to pursue her, but ever since Mother married him and ended up with a wicked mother-in-law, everything changed, all because the wicked mother-in-law said that women should dutifully care for their husbands and children, and that conquering the world is a man's business. Mom had been confined to the home for many years, but back then, Dad took great care of her in every way, showering her with tender words and affection, so she never complained at all, and even genuinely believed that taking care of the family for a man, ensuring he had no worries, was exactly what a wife should do. It wasn't until I entered middle school that Dad became visibly colder and more distant toward Mom. Every time he came home drunk from a dinner party, he would say some heart-wrenching things. Mr. Lee landed another huge order worth $200 million, all thanks to his wife. How enviable. His wife is the company's vice president. She's really capable. Every time she says this, Mom's expression turns gloomy. Yeah, she's truly impressive. Then she goes to make him hangover soup. After Dad sobered up, she seriously suggested that she wanted to work at the company, but he mercilessly mocked her. You've been disconnected from society for so many years, and those outdated ideas are no longer useful. Mom said she could start from the grassroots level, but he frowned impatiently. No. You're the wife of a CEO. What would it look like for you to work at the grassroots level? People would laugh at me. Mom still gently said that she could go abroad to study again. He grew even more impatient. What about my mom and Xiao Yu if you go abroad? Who will take care of them? Just like that, Mom was bound to the family by his endless reasoning. She thought her efforts and sacrifices would move him. I never expected him to say now. Wipe away your tears, don't cause trouble here. Hearing these words, Mom froze, and her tears stopped. Looking at Mom's expression, I whispered with a pang of heartache, Mom, you're amazing, truly great. Grandma's eyes also reddened beside us. Damn it, such a good wife and you don't cherish her, protecting that green tea bitch instead. Go to hell. Slap. Grandma slapped Dad hard across the face. You unfilial son, how dare you scold your own wife like that for an outsider? That slap was delivered with all her might, and Dad's cheek instantly swelled up high. He covered his face, looking at his grandmother in disbelief. Mom, why did you hit me? Seeing her father being hit, Bai Xiao whimpered softly and spoke up, Brother Qi, it's all because of me that your family is arguing. I should just move out. With that, she turned around and headed upstairs to pack her luggage. Her father grabbed her arm and said darkly, It's so late. Where can a girl with no one to rely on go? I said you can stay here. Who dares to drive you away? At this moment, Mom finally let go of my hand and stepped forward. She was no longer gentle, but spoke with an icy coldness. Miss Bai, we're both women, so I know exactly what you're up to. There's no need to use that kind of manipulative, green teeth tactic on me. Chi Songbai is a man. He might not see through it and fall for it, but I won't. You're standing in my house, and I am the only lady of this household, so please keep yourself in check and don't stir up any unnecessary trouble, otherwise, I'll have to ask you to get out of this house. I stood by and applauded for my mother. Grandma also cheered in her heart. That's my dear daughter-in-law for you, striking when the time is right. That's exactly how it should be. Can't be a soft persimmon for others to squeeze. Dad looked at Mom with a cold, menacing gaze. Shenji Xin, I am the master of this household. All these years, you've been eating my food, living in my house, and using my things, and you still have the nerve to call yourself the lady of the house. Hearing him say that, Grandma jumped up and slapped him again, her expression twisted with rage. Bullshit, your mother isn't dead yet. When did this family ever become yours to rule? Before Grandpa passed away, he was constantly troubled by the malicious grandmother, so he signed his will, leaving 30% of the company's shares to her. The remaining 30% was given to Dad. That's why Dad has always been respectful and obedient to Grandma. All these years, seeing Grandma interfering again, he ignored the pain in his face and whispered, "Mom, give me some face, I already promised Xiao Xiao." Before Grandma could continue speaking, Mom spoke up again, "Mom, this is between me and Songbai, please don't interfere." With that, she looked expressionlessly at Dad, her tenderness completely gone. "Are you sure you want to keep her?" Dad had never seen Mom, who was usually gentle and virtuous, act like this. He was stunned for a moment. Before awkwardly replying, "I already promised, it wouldn't be right to go back on my word." My mother waved her hand to interrupt him, took a deep breath, as if making up her mind. "Fine, you keep her, I'll move out, let's get a divorce. After all, in your heart, I'm just a woman who causes trouble." After saying this, my mother's eyes turned red, but she held back her tears and smiled with a heartbreaking beauty. "I said I wanted to leave with my mom," and Grandma grew anxious on the side. "Move. Where? This house is under my name, you don't have to go." After saying that, she pointed at Dad and Bai Xiao Xiao and roared, "You two, get out." After shouting, Grandma couldn't help but show a hint of relief on her face. Thank goodness the original owner was truly malicious and fought for so much inheritance and shares, otherwise it would have been really hard to control this scumbag. Sweet daughter-in-law, do you see it now? Even a dog would despise a man like this. Get a divorce quickly. You deserve better. Mom had stopped crying since earlier and was unusually calm. After hearing Grandma's inner thoughts, she became even more determined. "Did you hear that? Get out of this house with her." After saying that, she went upstairs and threw all of Dad's things down. I helped her throw them, but I noticed she started laughing as she threw first a smile, then a laugh, and finally she was laughing uncontrollably. Grandma shouted from below, "You wasteful daughter-in-law, why do you only throw away the valuable things? You're driving me crazy, good daughter-in-law. Just throw him something worthless to send him away." Upon hearing this, Mom stopped laughing and threw a cup at Dad. It landed right at his feet with a thud, and I heard Grandma sigh in disappointment. "Why didn't it smash that bastard's head? What a shame." Mom stood up and yelled at Dad, "I don't think President Chi cares about these things anyway. Take your woman and go buy new ones. Get out." Dad stared at the shattered glass on the floor, his face darkening. "I said I'm only taking care of Xiao Xiao because of Dad's last wish. Can you stop being unreasonable?" Mom had already awakened from years of drowning in old feelings and self-pity. Of course, she wouldn't listen to the scumbag say another word. Instead, she angrily cursed, "Screw your mom." Grandma's old face flushed red. "Ah, this, he. I knew this college girl would get the wrong idea." Sigh, "With a brain like yours, if it weren't for me back then, you'd have gone bankrupt and ended up sleeping on the streets long ago. Looking at it this way, you and Bai Xiao Xiao really are a perfect match. Brains are just decorative for you too, aren't they?" Dad was being scolded by Mom like this for the first time, gritting his teeth as he spoke. "How dare you scold me?" Mom spat. "Not only do I dare scold you, I can also carve it on your tombstone. Buy one, get one free. Bai Xiao Xiao, do you want it?" This was what Grandma cursed in her heart. Mom directly mimicked the curse and said it out loud, while Grandma looked so pleased that her eyes narrowed into slits, but she still had to maintain her persona, rushing over frantically and pointing upstairs to curse, "You wretched woman, trying to murder your own husband. Even if my son did something wrong, he's still my own flesh and blood." In her heart, she was urging her mother, "Good daughter-in-law, hurry up and keep throwing things down." Mother obediently picked up another vase, ready to hurl it down. Father was finally scared. Grandma pulled him and ran outside. "Son, hurry up and leave. She's lost her mind and gone crazy now. You go hide for a few days first. Mom will teach her a lesson, and then you can come back." Dad, hearing this, had no choice but to agree. He grabbed Bai Xiao Xiao and ran outside. Who knew Bai Xiao Xiao would shove him away and scream angrily at Grandma, "I'm not leaving. Why should I go? I'm already carrying the Chi family's flesh and blood in my belly. How can you bear to drive me away?" Grandma was stunned. "Damn, so this scumbag is already with her. Good, saves us the trouble of dealing with them later when they get together." Mom and I could hear everything clearly from upstairs. What does Grandma mean by that? Seems quite certain that Dad and Bai Xiao Xiao will get together. Thinking about it carefully, it really is. Ever since Bai Xiao Xiao first came to our house, Grandma has been very unkind to her. She has been sarcastic and humiliating her as if guarding against a thief, but there was no time for us to think. Mom stood up and rushed downstairs. Slap. She gave Bai Xiao Xiao a hard slap across the face, then she turned around and clawed at Dad's face. Well, you two scumbags still dare to pretend in front of me." I tugged at my dad's arm and pretended to cry loudly. "Actually, I was making it impossible for him to fight back. Dad, do you really not want me and Mom anymore? Woo-woo. Grandma, who was standing nearby, seemed to be holding Bai Xiao back from approaching, but in reality, she was pinching her arm and waist hard. For a moment, the hall was in chaos. Aunt Wang was finally awakened by the noise and came out rubbing her sleepy eyes. Damn, did a thief break into the house? We all said in unison, it's none of your business, go back to sleep. Wang Ma gave an, oh, and went back to her room to sleep. Why couldn't I have transmigrated into Wang Ma's body? This is really killing me. Grandma watched Wang Ma's retreating figure with envy, her eyes turning red. The next second, she started pinching Bai Xiao again. Bai Xiao cried out in pain, screaming like a boiling kettle, Brother Qi, save me. Dad was scratched into a mess by Mom, and his hands were tightly gripped by me, unable to break free. Helpless, he could only dodge Mom's attacks and, with a scratched-up face, said, I agree, let's get a divorce. The scene instantly fell silent. Mom finally collapsed to the ground as if exhausted, and Grandma also let go of her hands. Bai Xiao threw herself into her father's arms, crying with grievance. I held Mom tightly, giving her strength. System, my daughter-in-law is too pitiful, I can't bear to target her anymore. I just want to beat this despicable couple to death right now. If you think that's wrong, go ahead and electrocute me. Grandma seemed to have made up her mind about something. The next second, she stopped pretending altogether. She stood up, grabbed a vase, and charged at the two of them, smashing it down. To protect Bai Xiao, Dad gritted his teeth and took the blow on his back. Grandma angrily spoke up, Qi's Songbai, do you remember the promise you made in the study back then? Dad visibly swallowed hard. Mom, I'm your own son, you wouldn't really kick me out of the family for an outsider, would you? So in his eyes, Mom has always been an outsider from start to finish. After helping my mother up, I spat at my father. Ugh, you're the outsider. Scumbag, you don't deserve to be my dad. My mother seemed utterly exhausted, not even wanting to look at the two of them, and gestured for me to help her sit on the sofa. Grandma grabbed my father by the ear, forcing him to kneel, then went to the study and brought out a piece of paper. It was a contract. That day, the condition for Grandma to agree to Bai Xiao moving in was that Dad had to sign it. The contract clearly stated that if Dad engaged in any marital misconduct with Bai Xiao, he would have to leave with nothing. Shares, house, car, everything would belong to Mom. We even had this contract notarized by a lawyer and filed for the record. Do you have anything else to say? Grandma asked Dad coldly. Phew, good thing I had the foresight. Hey, why didn't you shock me just now? Being bad to your son also counts as a villainous persona. What? Being foul-mouthed and hitting anyone counts. Why didn't you say so earlier? I've been putting on an act for over a decade for nothing. My poor granddaughter and daughter-in-law have suffered so much. At that moment, her expression was a mix of anger and wild joy. Both my mother and I looked at her with grateful eyes. Dad fell to his knees with a thud. Mom, maybe Xiao is carrying a son. Haven't you always said that daughters are a waste of money and wanted a grandson? Bai Xiao knelt to the side, also looking at Grandma with hopeful eyes. Seeing Grandma's hesitation, Dad quickly continued, you know, Shen Jixin injured her body giving birth to Xiaoyu, and she can no longer get pregnant. I'm only thinking about the continuation of our Qi family line. Grandma made a disgusted sound and pointed at Bai Xiao, asking, are you sure the child in her belly is yours? Be careful not to become a cuckold raising someone else's child, you big fool. Two sentences made Bai Xiao tremble, but Dad didn't notice. Standing up abruptly, he stiffened his neck and roared, you can refuse to accept it, but don't insult Xiao. Seeing no hope, he grabbed Bai Xiao and started to walk out. I'll have someone bring the divorce papers over tomorrow. Please sign them as soon as possible. Mom stood by, hesitating to speak. Dad thought she wanted to persuade him to stay, and he said resolutely, I've long lost any feelings for you. It's better for us to separate. Only Xiao understands what I want. Saying this, he asked Bai Xiao with a blissful expression on his painted face, darling, didn't you say that as long as you're with me, you can go anywhere? Bai Xiao smiled, looking even more miserable than if she were crying, and could only nod. So, Dad no longer hesitated and took her away. Grandma asked Dad, is it worth it? Dad replied, being with the one you love is worth it. The next day, he indeed sent someone to deliver the divorce agreement. All the shares and property were left to Mom. and the two successfully divorced. After receiving the massive fortune, Mom's first move was to return to work at the company. She believed that with her abilities, she could quickly adapt and perform even better than Dad. She even hired a large number of professional talents at high salaries to assist her. After Dad left the company, it actually started doing better and better. Finally, a subordinate told Mom that Bai Xiao had actually been placed in the company by Dad 6 months ago to serve as his secretary. With a monthly salary of 100,000, she did nothing but serve tea and water. Although she didn't overstep any boundaries at the company, it still caused a lot of dissatisfaction among the senior management. Upon hearing this, Mother ordered a thorough re-examination of the company's accounts, which led to a shocking discovery. Ever since Bai Xiao joined the company, the accounts had been declining a little each month. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that father had been secretly transferring the funds. Over the past 6 months, the total amounted to a staggering 50 million. No wonder Dad readily agreed to sign the divorce agreement and leave with nothing. He had already prepared a backup plan long ago. Mom asked Grandma if she wanted to sue him, and Grandma replied, "Let's go meet this foolish bastard first." We went through quite a bit of trouble to find Dad. After the divorce, Dad changed his phone number and disappeared with Bai Xiao. I thought with 50 million, he should be living quite comfortably, but when we found him, he was staying in a 100 yuan a night guest house, unshaven, with sunken eyes. And he had lost a lot of weight. When he saw us, he finally broke down emotionally. That bitch ran off with all the money not long after she came out with me. Grandma smiled and asked him, "Isn't it true love?" His eyes were bloodshot as he spat out a curse. At the time, we planned to buy a large apartment to live in first and use the remaining money to start a business. That bitch said she had a cousin who played the stock market and had insider information, promising a tenfold return on investment. At first, I didn't believe it, so I invested 1 million. And actually got 10 million back. I tried a few more times and got the money each time, so I listened to her and invested all 50 million at once. But after that day, Bai Xiao and her so-called cousin just vanished. At this point, we pretty much understood. Bai Xiao had been in cahoots with that man from the start, targeting Dad's money. She's carrying your child, isn't she? How could she still run away? What a vicious woman. Grandma cursed bitterly. Before Dad could speak, Mom sighed and spoke softly. That day when you insisted on getting a divorce, I actually wanted to tell you. Back then, the hospital found out that you could no longer have children. I was afraid of hurting your pride as a man, so I told everyone that my body was damaged when I gave birth to Xiaoyan, completely putting an end to our parents' hopes of us having a second child. Upon hearing this, Dad's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Bai Xiao is carrying my child. Mom pulled a test report from her bag. It was the one Dad had kept from his examination back then. He read it over and over again, tearing it into pieces like a madman. Seeing that he didn't believe it, his mother took him to the hospital for a re-examination. The results showed that his father had been suffering from azoospermia due to mumps 15 years ago, and it had not improved to this day. The doctor shook his head, saying the chances of a cure were slim. Fortunately, you already have a child. He looked at me and smiled at my father. My father was taken aback and also lowered his head to look at me. Then he grabbed his hair frantically, knelt down, and cried bitterly. He kept muttering, "I just wanted a son. How could this happen?" Grandma scolded him from the side. "Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. How could I have given birth to such a foolish son?" After bringing Dad home, he remained silent the whole time, until a few days later, Mom said the police had caught Bai Xiao, along with her so-called cousin. They were also arrested and brought to justice. When they were discovered, the two had already obtained their visas and were sitting in the departure lounge, waiting to flee abroad. Fortunately, Mom acted quickly, which allowed the two to be intercepted. After investigation, that man was not Bai Xiao's cousin at all. The two were actually in a romantic relationship, and the child in Bai Xiao's belly was his. The son that Dad had been longing for belonged to someone else. This was something he couldn't accept, and he roared and raged in the interrogation room, demanding to know why from Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao sneered contemptuously, "Take a look at how old you are. I'm only in my 20s. How could I possibly like an old man like you? From start to finish, I was only after your money. If you had been willing to invest earlier, we would have flown abroad long ago. Ugh, not only are you stupid, but you're also indecisive and unmanly." Dad was so struck by her words that he spat out a mouthful of blood, cursing her as a bitch. A week later, the court session began, and Dad was sentenced to 10 years in prison for embezzling company assets by Xiao Xiao, and her boyfriend were also sentenced to 8 years in prison for fraud and fleeing with a large sum of money, and were ordered to return all illegal gains. With that, everything was settled. Before Dad went to prison, he confessed to Mom, saying he was wrong. Mom shook her head without even looking at him. In your eyes, the once excellent me. Marrying you was because of your great charm and outstanding abilities. You will never appreciate me or cherish me. When I gave up my career for you to devote myself to the family, you started to look down on me, forgetting that it was I who pulled you out of the mud. Half of your achievements are thanks to me, even when I, for the sake of love, willingly took the blame for not being able to have children. Enduring your mother's criticism for over a decade without complaint, where were you? You looked down on me, despised me, and betrayed me. So, all of this is the retribution you deserve. Over the next 2 years, my mother threw herself into her career and quickly doubled the company's assets once again. During this period, she was almost always up early and back late, meeting all sorts of people and having all kinds of conversations. She often stayed up late working in her study. Through her diligence and sincerity, she earned the trust of all her business partners. I finally saw my mother, whom I had never met before, shining brightly. I also believed that my father truly loved her at that time, because such a person is truly charming and is my role model. The day I received the admission letter from my dream university happened to be my 18th birthday, my coming-of-age ceremony. Mom and Grandma planned to give me a proper celebration, especially Grandma, who has completely changed her usual demeanor and is putting all her effort into directing Aunt Wang to do this and that. Aunt Wang grumbled, "Why is it that suddenly only I'm doing all the work these past 2 years? It's really exhausting." Mom also asked Grandma with a smile, "Mom, why haven't you scolded me and Xiaonian these past 2 years? A hint of embarrassment appeared on Grandma's face, and she thought to herself, "It's all because of that damn system. It only told me 2 years ago that I could be mean and nasty to anyone, which made me target you two for over a decade. My fault, my fault. I'm really sorry." On the surface, she could only let out an awkward chuckle. "Just think of me as an old fool. I couldn't see how good you were before. I'm sorry." She said this last sentence while looking at me and Mom with utmost sincerity. Mom and I exchanged a smile, shaking our heads at her. "It's okay, actually, we never blamed you." Seeing that she didn't seem to believe it, I rushed over and hugged her. "Because you've always only scolded us with words, but you never actually hurt us. And even protect us when Dad has problems. Thank you." Grandma seemed to freeze, her voice choked with emotion. "It's me who should thank you. Thank you for giving me such a wonderful experience." Extra chapter. Grandma's perspective. Many relatives and friends attended Xiaonian's birthday party. The villa was decorated with lanterns and streamers both inside and out, creating a lively atmosphere. I was very happy, continuously drinking red wine and praising my daughter-in-law and Xiaonian too. Others, they sat to the side, looking at me with faces full of happiness. In my memory, over the past decade or so, I had never shown them a kind expression, but they thanked me, grateful for the protection I had always given them. Hearing those words, my heart felt as if it were blocked by a lump of cotton, making me uncomfortable. Should be the one thanking them, thank them for giving me a wonderful life experience. Today is Xiaonian's 18th birthday, the coming-of-age ceremony, and also the day I complete my mission and will soon return. The system has been exceptionally lenient, allowing me to drop the villainous persona for today, but I just can't help wanting to make that Wang Ma do more work. I've spoiled her over the years. I can't let her stay this lazy after I'm gone, can I? That would be unfair to my daughter-in-law and granddaughter. How did my granddaughter and daughter-in-law end up sitting next to me? Am I drunk? It seems like they hugged me. Not sure. Trying hard to open my eyes and listen to what they're saying. "Oh, got it," they said. We love you, Huan Huan." How do they know my name is Huan Huan? I'm so dizzy. Never mind. With great effort, I open my mouth and respond to them. "I love you too." I'm so sleepy. I must be drunk. Good daughter-in-law, precious granddaughter, I'm going to bed first. See you tomorrow. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The fake heiress is allergic to lies. She sneezes whenever she hears one and breaks out in rashes. On the first day I was found, the fake heiress became covered in red, swollen patches, with tears and snot flying everywhere. From then on, the whole family labeled me as a deceitful liar with terrible character. Later, when my grandmother, who had suffered a stroke and was paralyzed, fell down the stairs, I just shook my head and said it wasn't me. Who would have thought that the next second, The fake heiress had an allergic reaction and went into shock on the spot. Dad was furious, and Mom cried and scolded. My brother even slapped me across the face. How could our one family have a venomous troublemaker like you? I was bullied, retaliated against, and tormented. It wasn't until after my death that I finally learned the secret of the fake heiress. On the first day I was found by the Wen family, I drank a cup of scalding hot water without hesitation. Only after feeling the unbearable, burning pain in my throat did I feel at ease enough to get into the Wen family's Porsche. In my previous life, the moment I met my biological parents and brother, I immediately embraced them with excitement, tears streaming uncontrollably. Mother Wen's eyes were red as she said she had finally found me. Beside her, Wen Yuzhu timidly spoke up, "I'm sorry, sister. I've been occupying your place all these years, and now that you're back, should return everything to you." Wen Yan frowned and flicked his finger on her forehead, saying, "What nonsense are you talking? Nianjun won't mind." I quickly took Wen Yuzhu's hand and said, "Of course, I see you as my own sister, we'll always be family." It was supposed to be a heartwarming scene, but Wen Yuzhu started rubbing her nose after I finished speaking, then sneezed several times in a row, and kept scratching her reddened arms. Wen Yan's expression darkened slightly as he instructed the servant to fetch allergy medicine. Mr. and Mrs. Wen also subtly let go of my hand. Their previously affectionate gazes now tinged with scrutiny. I felt somewhat panicked, unable to understand how a heartfelt statement from me could lead to such consequences. I've long heard that the daughter of the Wen family, Wen Yuzhu, has a strange illness. She is allergic to lies. It is said that when she was first adopted, Wen Yuzhu was allergic to a loyal nanny in the household. After some investigation, it was discovered that this nanny was a spy sent by a rival family to gather secrets from the Wen family. Later at a dinner party, Wen Yuzhu kept sneezing, interrupting her father's collaboration with a businessman. It was only afterward that they learned the businessman had already gone bankrupt, and the so-called collaboration was just a scam to swindle money. Even worse, at Wen Yan's engagement party, after coming into contact with the bride-to-be, Wen Yuzhu developed a full-body rash and a persistent high fever. In a fit of rage, Wen Yan discovered that his fiancée had been living a wild lifestyle, had contracted a disease, and was now looking for him to take the fall. One after another, these incidents made Wen Yuzhu the delicate beauty of the Wen family, cherished and pampered by everyone. They trusted her completely and would not allow anyone to harm her. As a result, they were wary of me. Their newly found biological daughter, Mrs. Wen, felt somewhat awkward and could only ask me stiffly how I had been all these years. Thinking back to the days of being beaten and scolded in the orphanage, bullied at school, and struggling at the bottom of society, I could only say bitterly, the hardest days are all in the past. Upon hearing this, Mother Wen couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache. But unexpectedly, after taking the allergy medicine, Wen Yuzhu not only didn't improve, but her arms began to develop hives, swelling up quite severely. Mrs. Wen immediately notified the family doctor with concern, her gaze toward me now tinged with wariness and displeasure. Without a doubt, she thought I was feigning weakness to gain sympathy. At that moment, Wen Yuzhu, ever reasonable, offered to give up her own room for me, saying it was simply returning what was rightfully mine. Feeling restless and uneasy, I immediately shook my head and said, "How can I possibly stay in your room? I didn't come back to take your things." This sentence acted like a fuse, completely igniting Wen Yuzhu's condition. She gasped heavily, huff, huff, clutching her chest as if she were about to suffocate. Wen Yan was furious and pushed me away abruptly, forbidding me from getting any closer to Wen Yuzhu. Wen's father's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. "Let's call it a day. Aunt Zhang, go and tidy up a guest room for her to stay in, and take her away." I watched them gather around Wen Yuzhu in a daze. I didn't know what I had done wrong to be so disliked and rejected by the family I had longed for. From then on, the Wen family never showed me a kind face again. I overheard the servants gossiping in private, saying that the newly found young lady was a deceitful liar with a terrible character, and that trash raised from the bottom could never compare to the Wen family's pearl. I could only lower my head even further. Living as a complete invisible person in the Wen family, what made me utterly despised happened one night. The Wen family went out for a walk, and I was in my room doing homework. Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside. I went out to check and was shocked to find the paralyzed old lady, along with her wheelchair, tumbling down the stairs. I shouted and was about to rush downstairs to help. Just then, the Wen family happened to push the door open and return. Witnessing the scene, the servant collapsed to the ground in terror, pointing at me and saying, "Miss Nianjun said she wanted to take the old lady to the back garden for some fresh air, but for some reason, She suddenly pushed the old lady down from upstairs, when Yan's eyes widened in fury. It was his beloved grandmother. Wen's father anxiously dialed the emergency number, his voice trembling at the emergency room door. The doctor said the situation was not optimistic. With tears streaming down my face, I shook my head and said, "Please, you must save Grandma. I don't know why this happened. It wasn't me." Unexpectedly, Wen Yuzhu, who was standing nearby, heard my words and immediately had an asthma attack. Her face turned deathly pale, and she went into shock, fainting on the spot. The situation became even more chaotic. When Yuzhu was also rushed into the emergency room, Wen's father gritted his teeth, suppressing his rage as he scolded me to shut up. Wen's mother kept wiping away her tears, silently praying for the old lady and her daughter's safety. Wen Yan was like a mad lion, his eyes bloodshot, as he slapped me hard across the face. "How many more people do you have to harm before you're satisfied? How could our Wen family have a venomous bastard like you? Is there even a single word of truth in your mouth?" I was knocked to the ground, my mind completely blank. I don't know why either. I also wanted to know how all of this had happened. I did nothing wrong, yet I became the sinner of the whole family. That day, Grandma passed away. When Yuzhu was transferred to the intensive care unit, the Wen family was completely disappointed in me. Mrs. Wen originally wanted to drive me away, cutting off all ties with me from then on. When Yen disagreed, he said coldly, "Life for a life, she caused Grandma's death, and I won't let her off easy." From then on, I was either locked in a dog cage or hung from the railing on the second floor. When Yen tormented and insulted me every day. Wen's parents turned a blind eye. I was utterly desperate, and my will to live grew weaker and weaker. Once, the nanny forgot to feed the Tibetan Mastiff, and in its extreme hunger, it bit my calf. I watched helplessly as it took bite after bite. Finally, I closed my eyes and let the pain engulf me. Recalling every detail of my past life, I clenched my fists. In this life, I will never let anyone manipulate me or live in a cowardly way again. Just like in my past life, the Wen family hugged me and cried as soon as they saw me. When Yuzhu also said the same words. "Sorry, sister, I've been occupying your place all these years. Now that you're back, I should return everything to you." However, this time I didn't speak, only silently watched her. Her eyes turned red, as if I had bullied her, and she kept apologizing to me. Seeing this, the Wen family couldn't help but feel some resentment toward me. I pitifully shook my head, opened my mouth, and pointed to my throat. It was red, swollen, and ulcerated. Their expressions changed instantly, and they immediately called for the family doctor. After the examination, the doctor said it was a burn and that it would heal with medication over time. Only then did Mrs. Wen feel relieved. However, the doctor sighed and said, "Miss Nyenjin has many new and old injuries on her body. It seems she has had a very difficult life these years." Upon hearing this, Mother Wen began to wipe the tears from the corner of her eye with a handkerchief. The overwhelming guilt and heartache made her voice tremble. "Jinjin, you've suffered so much over the years. From now on, Mom won't let you get hurt again." Father Wen stood nearby, his gaze fixed on the intricate scars on my body, and let out a heavy sigh. "From now on, no one will dare bully the heiress of the Wen family again." Wen Yan's jaw was clenched tight, and a flicker of reluctance flashed in his eyes. When Yuzhu was caught off guard by this sudden turn of events, no one paid any attention to her anymore. She stood frozen in place, like a lead actor whose scene had been stolen. At that moment, I saw the paralyzed old lady sitting in her wheelchair, and my nose tingled with emotion as I rushed to her side. In my previous life, to figure out what was really going on, my soul followed Wen Yuzhu after I died. Only then did I realized that she never actually had a so-called allergy to lies. She could simply hear the thoughts of those around her. Whenever she sensed a discrepancy between someone's words and actions, she would pretend to be allergic to lies, using it to stir up the protective instincts of the Wen family. The most terrifying thing is, I heard her say with my own ears early on, the old lady received news about me and was overjoyed, preparing to bring me back. Unexpectedly, when Yuzhu overheard her thoughts, in order to protect her own position, she went so far as to unleash a large dog to bite the old lady, causing her to suffer a shock-induced stroke and become a vegetable. Moreover, the reason the old lady's condition has shown no improvement over the years is entirely because when Yuzhu had long since bribed the servants, the medicine the old lady drinks every night is not a cure for her illness, but rather a poison that harms people. Over the years, the old lady has witnessed all the wrongdoings of Wen Yuzhu, yet she could do nothing but wait helplessly for death. I pressed my face against the old lady's hand, tears streaming uncontrollably. Grandma truly cared for me, but in my past life, I couldn't save her. Instead, I caused her to be tricked by a servant bribed by Wen Yuzhu, leading to her falling down the stairs and dying under mysterious circumstances. I must save Grandma in this lifetime. Although the old lady couldn't move, her eyes were slightly moist. Wen Yen, standing nearby, was somewhat moved and turned his face away. Wen's father and mother exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with relief. Only Wen Yuzhu stood in the distance, as if being excluded. The first battle I won that night. Wen Yuzhu came to my room with a sinister tone and said, "Don't get too happy too soon. In a month, it will be my 18th birthday. Dad has long promised to give me the shares in his hands as a coming-of-age gift. The Wen family will be mine sooner or later." A month later, I chuckled softly. "I will make sure you have an unforgettable memory on your 18th birthday." After that, I rested peacefully, and my voice recovered quickly. During that time, I personally took care of the old lady every night. All the medicine sent by the nanny was poured out by me and replaced with genuine medicine that could truly help the old lady recover. "Don't worry, Grandma, I had someone check your health. As long as you actively undergo treatment, you'll be able to speak in a month." The old lady blinked her eyes with relief. One day, when Mr. Wen and Wen Yen were going to discuss a major business deal, I specially cooked breakfast myself in the morning. Mother Wen was overjoyed. I never imagined Nianjin's cooking skills were so good. Being able to eat a meal made by my dear daughter makes my life complete. I smiled shyly, catching a glimpse of Wen Yuzhu out of the corner of my eye. She gritted her teeth in jealousy. I brought out a bowl of piping hot abalone porridge from the kitchen and handed it to Wen Yuzhu, saying, "I heard my sister has a weak constitution, so I specially simmered this abalone porridge over low heat all night. I also added various medicinal herbs. It's especially nourishing for the body. Please eat it while it's hot." But in my heart, I was screaming, "I put pufferfish toxin in this porridge, which can silently poison someone, you stole so many years of my life. And now it's time to give it back, you bitch, go die." When Yuzhu's face changed drastically, and she screamed, knocking over the porridge in front of her. The scalding porridge spilled onto me. Red rashes immediately appeared on her face. Clutching her neck as she struggled to breathe, she shouted that she was having an allergic reaction. The restaurant fell into chaos. Wen Yen carried Wen Yuzhu back to her room and quickly gave her an anti-allergy medication. On the bed, Wen Yuzhu looked as if she were about to cry, appearing weak and fragile. "Sister, why did you lie? That bowl of porridge wasn't for nourishing the body. What did you do to it?" Wen Yen narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing me as he questioned, "Are you still unable to tolerate Yuzhu, so you poisoned the porridge?" The suspicious gazes of Wen's father and mother fell upon me. It was the same situation as in my previous life. This time, I wasn't the least bit flustered and pretended to be wronged. That bowl of porridge was indeed a nutritious porridge I simmered all night. How could it be poisoned? Dr. Lu understands pharmacology, right? He can check on the spot and see what the truth really is. After Dr. Lu took the sample and conducted an on-site test, he said with certainty, "This abalone porridge contains dendrobium, codenopsis, and goji berries, all top-grade herbs for nourishing qi and blood. It's even more impossible for it to be poisonous." The family chef also chimed in, with so many people in the house watching. Miss Nianjin didn't sleep a wink all night just to prepare this nutritious porridge. How could she possibly poison it? Upon hearing this, Wen Yuzhu's face turned deathly pale, and she kept muttering that it was impossible. Originally, a business collaboration was to be discussed today, but now this misunderstanding has delayed the opportunity, resulting in a direct loss of several billion. Mr. Wen, rarely showing his displeasure, turned a cold face toward Wen Yuzhu. "You've taken this joke too far. Go kneel in the ancestral hall tonight." Only then did Mrs. Wen notice the burns on my arms, covered in blisters. She quickly called for a doctor to treat them. Her gaze toward Wen Yuzhu carried a hint of reproach. Wen Yuzhu bit her lip unwillingly. "I've had a lye allergy since I was a child. How could I be wrong this time? That bowl of porridge definitely had a problem." I could only sigh and take out a report on it. Was clearly Wen Yuzhu's allergen test result. I didn't want to say this, but a few days ago, I secretly took my sister's blood sample for testing and found out she's allergic to gardenia flowers. Haven't you noticed that every time my sister's condition flares up, there's the scent of gardenia flowers? Wen's parents were shocked and suspicious. Taking the report to examine it carefully, I then took out a bottle of gardenia liquid and said, "This is what I just found under my sister's bed." At this point, who wouldn't understand? Wen's father swiftly searched everywhere and finally found a large box of gardenia liquid in the wardrobe. the evidence is conclusive." His face turned ashen with uncontrollable rage. He grabbed a handful of the liquid and flung it at Wen Yuzhu's face. "What else do you have to say? You've been deceiving us all these years. If it weren't for Nianjun, we would still be fooled by you." Mother Wen seemed to be in disbelief, as if her faith had collapsed. The daughter she had doted on for so many years had actually been lying to her all along. She was utterly disappointed. Wen Yan sat by the bed with his head in his hands, looking deeply troubled. Wen Yuzhu was completely panicked. She scrambled up from the bed and kept saying, "No, I didn't, you have to believe me. It's not like that." Wen's father snorted coldly, slammed the door, and left. "Your 18th birthday party is cancelled." Wen's mother pulled me away. Wen Yan's face showed no expression, and he silently followed behind as they walked out. Only Wen Yuzhu, who seemed abandoned by the whole world, remained kneeling on the floor of the bedroom in panic. How does it feel to be distrusted, despised, and abandoned? In my past life, I died with these feelings. Now it's your turn to taste it. Wen Yuzhu's desperate screams echoed in the room, but no one paid her any attention anymore. However, the change occurred the next morning. Wen Yuzhu did not get up for a long time, and the nanny went to check only to find the room empty. At this moment, Wen's father, Wen's mother, and Wen Yan's phones all received a video. At a nearby construction site, Wen Yuzhu, still in her pajamas, stood on a high platform. Her face was streaked with tears, pale and pitiful. "Mom, Dad, brother, I didn't mean to deceive you all these years. I've never hurt you. I just love you too much. I feel insecure, afraid you might abandon me. Now that my sister has returned, she is your real daughter. There's no point in me clinging to this world any longer. I just want to say one last goodbye to you. Thank you, and I love you." In the video, she stepped back step by step, moving closer and closer to the edge, the wind making her sway unsteadily. Wen Yan abruptly stood up and immediately grabbed his car keys. The entire way, he drove at breakneck speed with a grim expression, the atmosphere in the car heavy and tense. Upon arriving at the construction site, several migrant workers were trying to persuade Wen Yuzhu to come down from the high platform, but Wen Yuzhu shook her head tearfully. "I did something wrong. I lied to my dearest family, and I can't face living anymore, Mrs." Wen anxiously pleaded with a tearful voice, "No matter what, you must not take your own life. Don't scare your mother, Mr." Wen also frowned and said, "As long as you come down from there, we can let this matter go." But no matter what they said, Wen Yuzhu refused to come down, seemingly determined to jump. By this time, Wen Yan had already climbed up and reached Wen Yuzhu's side, continuously comforting her. Just then, a steel plate from higher up suddenly broke loose, plummeting straight toward Wen Yan's head. At the critical moment, Wen Yuzhu leaped from the edge of the high platform toward Wen Yan, pushing him aside without hesitation. However, she had no time to dodge herself and was struck hard on the back by the steel plate. A cry of pain rang out. Wen Yan's eyes instantly reddened. He held Wen Yuzhu in his arms as if he had lost his soul, helplessly begging his parents to call for an ambulance. After the scare, fortunately, Wen Yuzhu was not seriously injured, only suffering a back injury that required her to lie down and rest for a while. Only then did Wen Yan breathe a sigh of relief, and he said with lingering fear, "Yuzhu has grown up under our watch all these years. How could we not understand her character? There is no girl in the world kinder than her. Let this matter pass. If it weren't for Yuzhu, the one lying in there now would be me." Wen's mother patted her chest and nodded repeatedly. "Yuzhu is still my good child." In the hospital room, Wen Yuzhu asked weakly, "Have you forgiven me, Dad? You'll still celebrate my 18th birthday with me, right, Mr.?" Wen sighed and nodded. When Yuzhu finally smiled, she gave me a look, as if to say, "What can you do? Even if you expose me, I'm the one who has been by their side all these years, and I'm the one they love the most. With just a little trick, they'll come back to me." I laughed instead. This incident is merely a prelude, aimed at shattering the Wen family's trust in Wen Yuzhu. The main event is still to come. In the following days, I followed the routine, taking meticulous care of the elderly lady every day. One evening, the elderly lady's fingers actually moved. I was so excited that I could hardly contain myself, as it indicated that the old lady's health was improving. I held the old lady's hand and said, "Wen Yuzhu can hear people's inner thoughts, so when you are in front of her, you must control your inner voice. I will definitely bring you justice." Soon, it was time for Wen Yuzhu's 18th birthday banquet. The Wen family had invited almost all the city's elite, showcasing their immense affection for this adopted daughter. Wen Yuzhu was dressed in a custom-made gown, her makeup flawless, her smile proper yet tinged with a hint of barely concealed smugness. Her gaze swept over me, filled with provocation and disdain. Back then, Dad was almost deceived, and it was I who helped him avoid disaster. He promised to transfer the shares to me then. Even you, his biological daughter, won't get Dad's inheritance. Rights, she held her head high. Excellent. If nothing unexpected happens, she will be a top-tier billionaire after today. Halfway through the banquet, Mr. Wen stepped onto the stage. Thank you, distinguished guests, for attending my daughter Yuju's coming-of-age ceremony. His voice was loud and clear, carrying an unquestionable authority. Today is not just a birthday, it is also the day an important promise is fulfilled. I, Wen Zhenhua, hereby announce that I will formally gift 15% of the shares I hold in the Wen Group to Yuju as a coming-of-age present. Amidst a round of applause, when Yuju was so moved that her eyes welled up with tears, she stepped forward and signed her name on the agreement, just as Father Wen was about to sign his name as well. I disagree. The entire room instantly fell silent. Shocked and puzzled gazes fell upon me when Yuju looked at me with disdain. What right do you have to object to the gift my father gave me? I said resolutely. How can the Wen family's shares be given to someone who plots against their own flesh and blood, deceives the entire family, and is full of lies? When Yuju, furious and exasperated, lashed out at me with harsh words. I know you've always been jealous of me, but you can't slander me like this. Mom, Dad, brother, look at her. Wen's father's face turned ashen, and when Yen scolded me, telling me not to make a scene, I took a deep breath and signaled to play the pre-prepared video on the huge projection screen in the banquet hall. When Yuju's figure appeared, that's right, I had long installed a miniature camera in her bedroom. In the footage, when Yuju was sneering and scheming with the family's nanny, Zhang Ma, tomorrow, you go to the nearby construction site early, I'll pretend to jump off the building, and when Yen will definitely come up to save me. When the time comes, you seize the moment and throw a steel plate at his head. I'll take the hit for him, and then we'll see if they don't soften up. When Nianjun, a piece of trash who crawled back from the bottom, dares to compete with me, once I take control of the Wen family, I'll have plenty of ways to make her wish she were dead. Every word felt like it was dipped in poison, piercing straight to the heart. Mother Wen shuddered and abruptly shook off Wen Yuju's hand. When Yen looked at her in disbelief, as if he didn't recognize her. Was everything that happened that day part of your self-inflicted suffering scheme? When Yuju's face instantly turned as pale as paper, she stood frozen in place for a moment, then suddenly laughed. She laughed with great composure. It turns out that AI has already evolved to this extent, even I can't tell what's real or fake anymore. Sister, forging this video must have cost you a lot of money, right? I know you're not willing to accept it, but this was Dad's promise to me. Can you please stop making a scene? When Yen finally breathed a sigh of relief, then turned a sinister gaze toward me. When Nianjun, I've watched Yuju grow up since she was little, there's no way she could say such vicious things. You keep targeting her again and again. Is your mind really that narrow? I sneered coldly. He's completely blind. Watching as Father Wen had someone take me away. At that moment, a voice, old, weak, yet exceptionally clear, rang out like a thunderclap. Liar. The voice was all too familiar. The Wen family turned around in disbelief, looking toward the source of the sound. The old lady was seen sitting in her wheelchair, her lips trembling slightly. Grandma, you can speak. When Yen was the first to rush over, his voice choked with ecstasy and disbelief. Wen's parents also snapped out of their daze, throwing themselves in front of the old lady's wheelchair, so overwhelmed with emotion that they were at a loss for words. Mom, it's wonderful that you're feeling better. Today is truly a double blessing. Mrs. Wen, the matriarch of the Wen family, is a remarkable woman. During the financial crisis, she turned the tide, allowing the Wen Group to thrive and become a legend in the financial world. She is undoubtedly the one in charge of the Wen family. However, an unexpected event occurred. She suffered a sudden stroke for unknown reasons, paralyzed for 7 years. Yet, what is even more surprising is that today, 7 years later, the elderly lady of the Wen family can actually speak. However, Mr. Wen is somewhat confused and cautiously asks, Mom, who were you saying was lying just now? Was it Wen Nianjun's video that was fake? The elderly lady's gaze is fixed intently on the fake heiress as she says, word by word, Wen, Yu, Zhu. The 3 words struck Wen Yuju like a thunderbolt, causing her to collapse to the ground in terror, trembling uncontrollably. How can you suddenly speak? It's impossible. The old lady knew all her secrets, and now that she could speak, it meant Wen Yuju was completely finished. The old lady's eyes were filled with overwhelming hatred and sorrow. She took a deep breath and began to reveal the shocking truth. Her Words intermittent yet crystal clear. Back then, it was she who set the dogs on me, causing me to have a stroke, because I had already found Nyenjan. She can hear people's thoughts. It was never a lie about being allergic to lies. It was also she who instructed Zhang Ma to poison me, preventing my body from ever recovering. When Yen took a sudden step back, shaking his head in disbelief. On one side was his beloved grandmother, on the other was the kind-hearted sister he had watched grow up. He couldn't accept this reality, seeing that the timing was about right. I had someone bring Zhang Ma up. With a sorrowful expression, she confessed everything that had happened over the years, how she had once undone the muzzle of a large dog to frighten the old lady, and how she had administered slow-acting poison to prevent the old lady's health from improving over the years, how Wen Yuzhu repeatedly schemed against her family, and now, how she orchestrated a self-inflicted injury to win sympathy. Each and every incident left Wen Yuzhu utterly unable to recover. For the first time, when Yan's eyes reddened, and the veins on his arms bulged, I was blind. The sister I've always cherished as my own heart and soul turned out to be so malicious. How dare you harm Grandma like this? She has been the closest and dearest person to me since I was a child. Mr. Wen's face turned ashen as he slapped Wen Yuzhu across the face. You ungrateful wretch, how could I have adopted such a thankless wolf? Wen Yuzhu covered her face, her hair disheveled, looking utterly pitiful. Seeing that everyone had turned against her and no one believed her words anymore, she simply went mad and loudly questioned, "Isn't this all the result of your indulgence, Dad? When the old lady had a stroke back then, didn't you investigate? Didn't you know it was me who had someone do it? Mom, haven't you noticed the medicine the old lady has been taking all these years? You must have sensed something was off about it too. What right do you have to criticize me now? If the old lady hadn't suffered a stroke, would you have become a director of the group?" Another slap. It landed hard on Wen Yuzhu's mouth. Wen's father's face was as ugly as a demon's. Well, it turns out both Wen's father and mother were in the know. This is a game where everyone is a villain. Wen Yen, however, looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He grabbed his mother's sleeve in confusion and asked if Wen Yuzhu had gone mad. Wen's mother wiped her tears with her hand, sobbing and saying, "Yenner, everything I did was for you, otherwise how could you have become the general manager so quickly?" When Yen recoiled as if he had seen a ghost, shaking off his mother's hand, he kept stepping back, unable to accept the truth. His face pale, he shook his head repeatedly, and finally, as if he could bear it no longer, he turned and walked away. Mrs. Wen leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, watching Wen Yen drive away, then collapsed to the ground and cried as if all the strength had been drained from her. The elderly lady in the wheelchair watched everything with a cold gaze, then spoke with unwavering authority, "From now on, I will reclaim all shares from both direct and collateral branches. From this day forward, I will take charge of the Wen family. The only rightful heir to the Wen family is my own granddaughter, Wen Nyenjan." Everyone fell silent, knowing that the formidable heroine who once dominated the business world had returned. Mr. Wen, looking pale and defeated, knelt before the elderly lady to admit his mistake. "Mom, I've been blinded by greed all these years. Please punish me." The elderly lady coldly pronounced her judgment. "You too are blind in both eyes and hearts. The Wen family will be ruined sooner or later if left in your hands. Starting tomorrow, pack your things and return to the countryside. I never want to see you again." Mrs. Wen knelt on the ground in despair, her eyes devoid of any hope. The Wen family's ancestral home was a secluded fishing village with extremely harsh living conditions. After years of living in luxury, the two of them being sent back to the countryside would surely mean a great deal of hardship to endure. In just one birthday banquet, the Wen family was completely turned upside down. Once the bright moon in the sky, the flower of wealth in the mortal world, now, when Yuzhu has nothing left, she felt a bit dazed. Clutching the equity transfer agreement tightly in her arms, then she glared at me with venom. "Why is this world so unfair? I was just about to become someone superior forever, and it's all your fault that I ended up like this." I shook my head. "Not only do you have the ability to read minds, but you were also adopted by the wealthy Wen family. You were dealt a good hand from the start, but you chose to be deceitful, full of schemes. You brought this upon yourself. I've already called the police. Go to prison and reflect on your actions." When Yuzhu jolted awake in a panic, she scrambled to her feet, staggering as she rushed outside. "No, I don't want to go to jail. I haven't become a top dog yet. I can't." I furrowed my brow and immediately followed. She took off her high heels, unwilling to throw them away even while running, instead clutching them tightly in her hand. Just then, the sound of an alarm rang out. "The police are coming." When Yuzhu panicked and actually ran onto the main road. This was a fast lane. and a black sedan driving at high speed suddenly appeared. The next second, when Yuju was hit in mid-air, the shattered glass from the car window and the diamonds on her haute couture dress blended together, indistinguishable, just like her life. Then she fell heavily to the ground, blood slowly seeping out. I called an ambulance, but it was already too late. When Yuju thus ended her life, until her death, she still held in one hand the high heels she couldn't bear to part with. In the other hand, she clutched the unfinished share transfer agreement. After taking one last look at her, I turned and walked away. Goodbye. When Yuju were even now, after that day, the entire capital knew that the matriarch of the Wen family had regained control, swiftly and decisively reorganizing the Wen group. The matriarch of the Wen family was recovering better and better. Though she still needed a wheelchair, she could already move her upper body. She took me under her wing and personally taught me how to manage the company. I followed the old lady's teachings every day. 2 years later, the old lady handed over a branch company for me to practice with. One night, I had a late business dinner, and as I stepped out of the restaurant, I waited for my driver at the entrance. However, unexpectedly, while the restaurant security staff were not paying attention, a pair of hands covered my mouth and dragged me into the darkness. I struggled with all my might, but it was in vain. I could only let him drag me into an alley. In the darkness, I tried hard to see his face clearly and realized it looked somewhat familiar. I only recognized him when he started speaking. He was a clerk at a convenience store I often visited. He grabbed my neck with a sinister look. Anyway, I'm already a murderer, doomed to die. Might as well have some fun before I go. I've always wanted to mess with rich people like you. Tears welled up in large drops. He was a desperado, and I feared I was doomed. But what I didn't expect was, a strong beam of light suddenly appeared, and the next second, a person emerged, subduing the criminal before me with swift and decisive moves. I narrowly escaped death, gasping for breath. Only after calling the police did I get a chance to see this person clearly. When Yen, at the police station, I sat with him. His appearance hasn't changed much, but his demeanor is completely different from before. He used to carry a certain sharpness about him. Now, he is as calm as a pool of water. He said that back then, he couldn't accept the fact that his biological parents had allowed Wen Yuzhu to harm his grandmother, so he chose to run away. For half a year, he shut himself away in a place far, far away. Later, he finally came to understand. He no longer dwelled on the past. The only thing he couldn't let go of was me. His complex gaze fell upon me. I was deeply saddened when I lost you back then, when Yuzhu's presence filled the void in my heart, which is why I went mad with kindness toward her. When you returned, I didn't trust you, and I hurt you. I truly am the worst brother in the world. For over a year now, I've been following you, but I was too ashamed to show myself until you were in danger tonight. I nodded. Have I not longed for my brother's love? Yet the torment he inflicted on me in my past life is still vivid in my mind, and those scars can never be erased. Sensing my distance, his voice turned bitter. I won't disturb you anymore in the future. I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry. And I love you very much, brother. After saying that, he gently left. A tear slid from the corner of my eye. Past and present lives, who can truly explain them? Perhaps in this lifetime, when Yen hasn't done too many things to hurt me, but without my rebirth, he would likely still have walked the same path as in my previous life, so I cannot forgive him, nor do I have the standing to condemn him. Therefore, from now on, never meeting again and becoming strangers is our best choice. Since then, I have never seen him again. The branch company is managed very well by me, and several big deals have been successfully negotiated. Grandma is very satisfied with me. Her eyes curved into a smile. Yenjin is just like me, with a talent for finance. I nestled against Grandma's legs, thinking to myself, the best thing I've done in this life is saving the grandmother who loves me the most. I had someone investigate the situation of the Wen couple. When I saw their photos, I realized they had aged a lot. Their hair had turned white, and their wrinkles were deep. The two of them lived in poverty, for the sake of a meal. Mr. Wen had to follow others out to sea, enduring wind and waves every day. Mrs. Wen, who had never lifted a finger in her life, had to learn to manage household chores, her face darkened by kitchen smoke. I turned off the video and stopped paying attention. From then on, I only cared about my grandmother and my own path. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.